I didn't cry when he said it. That's the part I want you to remember. I didn't cry. I just put my hand flat on the kitchen doorframe, the way you do when the floor is going to tilt, and you want to be ready for it. Mom, eat in your room tonight, please. My son, David, 46 years old. Standing at the stove in the house, I had cooked Thanksgiving, in for 31 years, stirring a pot of gravy with the wooden spoon I'd given his wife the Christmas. She joined the family. He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the gravy. Like the gravy was the more complicated thing in the room. Behind him at the dining table, I could hear Elena's voice, my daughter-in-law, telling the guests something about place cards. Her parents were there. Her sister, Marisol. Her brother-in-law, whose name I could never remember because he'd never said more than hello, Mrs. Whitfield to me in 4 years of marriage. Their children, her nieces and nephews. 11 people at the table I had paid for in 1989. 11 place cards. I had not seen mine when I'd walked past. David. I kept my voice even. I brought the pecan pies. I know, Mum, I know. The pies are great. We'll all eat them. It's just Elena's family is here, and there's already so much going on. And you know how Mum can get when she... He stopped himself. How Mum can get. Like I was a condition. Like I was weather. When she has a lot of questions, he finished. So I made you a plate. It's in the warmer. You can take it upstairs. Watch something. Relax. A plate in the warmer. Like I was a dog who'd come inside muddy. I looked at my son. I looked at the wooden spoon in his hand. I looked past him at the back of Elena's head through the doorway, at the way her shoulders were very deliberately not turning around to acknowledge that I was standing there. I thought about all the things I could say. I carried you for 9 months. I paid this mortgage until 2004. I drove 4 hours in the snow to get here. I baked 3 pies from scratch. I am your mother. I didn't say any of it. I said, "All right, David, where's the plate?" He showed me. A plate in the warming drawer, covered in foil, turkey, a spoon of stuffing, some green beans, no cranberry, no rolls, no gravy. A child's dinner, portioned by a man who didn't know what his mother liked to eat. I carried it upstairs to the guest room. My guest room, in the house I had once called home, and I sat on the bed, and I set the plate on the little vanity. I didn't lift the foil. I didn't eat. I listened. I listened to them laugh. I listened to Elena's father tell some story that made everyone roar. I listened to a glass clink, a toast, to family. I heard my son's voice say the word, and I heard every other voice at that table rise up to meet his, and not one of them paused to wonder why one chair was empty upstairs. I sat on the bed and I began, very quietly, to count. Not years this time, not dollars. Dinners. I counted every dinner I had cooked in that house, every Sunday roast, every school night meatloaf, every birthday cake iced at midnight because David had forgotten to tell me he'd invited 12 kids, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter ham. Every casserole carried 4 hours up the highway after I moved to the condo, because I didn't want him to go without. I stopped counting at 400. I had stopped because my throat had started to ache, not because I'd run out of meals. And then I made a decision. Not a loud one, not the kind with slammed doors. The kind with paperwork. I drove home the next morning before anyone else was awake. I left the plate in the warming drawer, the foil still untouched. I left the pecan pies on the counter with a note that said, "Happy Thanksgiving," in my neatest handwriting. I left David's spare key on the kitchen island. The key he'd given me in 2018, when Elena first got pregnant, in case of emergencies. Mom. I wasn't going to need it anymore. I drove the 4 hours back to my condo in a silence so complete I didn't even turn the radio on. The sun came up somewhere around Harrisburg. I didn't cry then either. I was still deciding what I was going to do. and a woman who is deciding something important does not have time to cry. When I got home, I unlocked my own door. I put the kettle on. I sat at my own table, and I opened the folder I kept in the locked drawer of the desk that had been my husband Raymond's back when he was alive, and we were still a we. Raymond had been gone 11 years, but the folder he'd built me was still current, because Raymond had been the kind of man who updated paperwork the way other men changed oil. Inside the folder, the title to my car, in my name only. The deed to the condo, in my name only. A 529 education trust I had started for my granddaughter Lily the day she was born. Funded quietly every month since. Current balance, $94,000. A smaller one for my grandson Joaquin, started the day he was born. Current balance, $38,000. The Christmas fund, a separate savings account I used every year to buy gifts for David and Elena and the kids. Current balance, $6,200, because I just topped it up in October for this year. The David Fund, an account I'd kept since my husband died, quietly feeding it $200 a month, earmarked for David in my will. Balance, $71,400. And underneath all of that, a single sheet of paper I had almost forgotten. The loan agreement Raymond had made David and Elena sign in 2016 when we'd helped them buy the house. $38,000 at 4%, payable on demand. David had made 2 payments in 2017. Then he'd stopped. I had never asked. Raymond had died 6 months later, and I had not had the strength to chase my son about money while I was learning how to sleep alone. 8 years of silence. 8 years of compounding. I did the math on the back of an envelope. Just over $51,000. I looked at that number for a long time. Then I looked at the $71,400 in the David Fund, and the $6,200 in the Christmas Fund, and the 529S. And I realized something that I had been too polite to realize for 46 years. My son had an entire financial architecture around him that he did not know existed. Built by his father, maintained by me. Scaffolding under his whole adult life, invisible, silent. And last night, he had told me to eat upstairs. I picked up the phone. Her name was Margaret Ojo. She had been Raymond's estate attorney for 20 years. When I called, the receptionist said Miss Ojo was booked for 3 weeks. I told her my name. She put me on hold for 90 seconds. Then Margaret came on the line herself. Grace, what's happened? I need to come in. Everything needs to change. When? Tomorrow. 10 o'clock. Bring everything. I hung up and sat with my tea. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel angry. I felt the way you feel when you finally put down a suitcase you've been carrying for so long you forgot it was in your hand. Tuesday morning, I dressed carefully. The charcoal wool skirt Raymond had said made me look like I owned a bank. The cream silk blouse, small pearl earrings. When you are about to reorganize a life, you do not dress like someone who has been sent to her room. Margaret's office was on the 18th floor of a building downtown. Her desk had exactly 3 things on it: a laptop, a legal pad, and a small framed photograph of her late husband. I liked her desk. It was a desk that had decided things. I laid out the folder one piece at a time. The will, the trust documents, the 529S, the David Fund, the Christmas Fund, the loan agreement. Then I told her about Thanksgiving. Margaret did not interrupt. Margaret did not sigh sympathetically. Margaret wrote 2 words on her legal pad and underlined them. I saw it across the desk. Eat upstairs. When I was finished, she looked up. Grace, what do you want to do? I want to do everything I should have done the first time. He let his wife serve me last at Christmas. But I didn't know it was the first time because I thought it was an accident. Tell me what everything looks like. I took a breath. Call in the loan, full amount with interest, certified mail, 30 days. She wrote it down. Dissolve the David Fund, reallocate it. To what? The two 529s, split evenly. Lily and Joaquin. She wrote it down. Close the Christmas account, move that money to the same place. The 529s? No, a different place. I'll tell you in a minute. She nodded. Remove David as executor of my will. Remove him as beneficiary on my retirement accounts. Remove him as power of attorney, medical, and financial. Remove him from everything except the 529 trusteeship for his children, which stays structured so he cannot touch the principal, and neither can Elena. She was writing fast now. Who takes his place as executor? You, if you'll accept, or someone you recommend. I'll accept. Thank you. The Christmas money, where's it going? I reached into my purse and pulled out a worn brochure. I'd carried it around for 3 years without ever quite doing anything with it. The Haven, a dining hall and community program for widowed seniors. I'd eaten there once, on a day when my condo had felt too quiet. A woman named Frances had sat with me and told me about her husband for an hour. I'd promised myself I'd come back. I never had. The Christmas account. And this is the part I need you to walk me through. I want to change the beneficiary of the Greenbrier condo. Margaret looked up sharply. The condo? When I die. The condo was going to David. I want it to go to the Haven instead. Sold, proceeds donated. A dining room named after Raymond. Grace. That's a significant reallocation. Margaret. He told me to eat in my room. She held my eyes for a long moment. Then she wrote it down. We worked for 3 hours. When we were finished, she walked me to the door and for a second set down her professional face. Grace. Yes. I'm proud of you. Oh, Margaret. Don't. If you make me cry now, I'll have to redo my makeup in your bathroom. She laughed. I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd had in 11 days. The loan demand letter went out by certified mail on Wednesday. I took my phone off the charger, set the ringer to silent, and placed it face down on the kitchen counter. I knew what was coming. I didn't need to watch it arrive. Friday morning, I turned the phone over. 17 missed calls from David. 4 from Elena, which was unusual. Elena never called me directly. 1 voicemail. I played it on speaker while I made toast. Mom, it's David. Listen, I don't know what's happening. We just got this letter from somebody named Ojo. $51,000. Mom, are you serious right now? You've never once mentioned this. Dad told us that loan was Mom. This is insane. Elena is beside herself. Call me back. Call me back today. I buttered my toast. I ate my toast, standing at the window, watching a cardinal land on the small bird feeder I'd hung the day after Raymond died, because widows need something to feed. Saturday, the calls started again. David, then Elena. Hi, Grace, it's me. Listen, I don't know what David did or said at Thanksgiving, and I'm sure we can clear up whatever this is. But threatening us with a legal letter over something like this? It's a really sad look. Please call him. He's devastated. The kids are asking questions. Let's not do this. The kids are asking questions. 3 months earlier, Lily had asked me on FaceTime why I never came over for dinner anymore. I had said, "Oh, honey, Grandma's busy." I had not told her the truth, which was that her mother had stopped inviting me 4 months before that, after I'd made the mistake of correcting Elena about which fork she'd given Lily at a restaurant. Now the children were asking questions. Now it was urgent. I deleted the voicemail. Sunday, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. David alone, no jacket, in the hoodie he wore around the house, which meant he had driven 4 hours in a hoodie. His hair was uncombed. He had not shaved. I did not open the door. Mum, your car's in the lot. I know you're home. I stood on my side of the door. Mum, whatever happened, whatever Eleanor said, and I know she can be, I know there's things. I know. But this letter, Mum, please. Just open the door. I thought about the plate in the warming drawer, the pies on the counter, the note in my neatest handwriting. I thought about Raymond sitting at his desk in 2016 saying, Grace, he has to sign it. I love him, but he has to sign it, because otherwise we're training him that we don't exist. I did not open the door. David stood on the other side for a long time. Then I heard a small sound. I hadn't heard from him since he was 12, the year his father had caught him in a real lie and sent him to his room to think about it. It was the sound of a grown man realizing that, this time, nobody was coming down to get him. He left. I made tea. On Monday, I called the Haven. The woman who answered was named Beatrice. When I told her I was considering making a significant gift, she said, "Oh, honey, don't be one of those callers who wants to be thanked before you've even written a check. Come have lunch. It's pot roast Tuesday." I laughed out loud in my own kitchen. I had not been spoken to like that by a stranger in years. I went to lunch. The Haven was a converted old-school building in a neighborhood I had never once driven through in 30 years of living, 2 miles away. Beatrice met me at the door in a cardigan that had obviously survived a grandchild. The dining hall held maybe 60 people, widows, widowers, a few couples who came together because the company was better than their own kitchens. Frances, the woman who had once told me about her husband, was there. She remembered me. She waved me over. I ate pot roast at a round table with 6 strangers who, within 20 minutes, were not strangers. A man named Horace had been a postal carrier for 40 years. A woman named Delphine had once been a church organist. Frances's husband had died on a Tuesday in 2019, and she had not, she admitted, really eaten a proper meal since until she'd started coming here. Nobody asked me what I did for a living. Nobody asked me about my children. They asked me if I liked the pot roast and whether I played cards. I stayed for 3 hours. On the way out, Beatrice walked me to the door and said, very gently, "Grace, whatever it is you came here to figure out, you figured it out, didn't you?" I think I did. Come back Thursday. It's meatloaf. I will. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the Haven for a long time, not crying, just sitting, listening to the heater tick, thinking about how I had almost allowed my son and his wife to turn me into a woman who ate alone in a guest room while her family toasted each other downstairs, and how close I had come, so close, to accepting that as the shape of the rest of my life. I drove home. I called Margaret. I told her to finalize the Haven donation. Elena came on Wednesday. She came alone, which surprised me, and she did not bring a casserole, which didn't. She was wearing her good camel coat, the one she wore to things she considered important, and she had put on lipstick for the drive. She rang the bell twice. I opened the door halfway. Not all the way. Halfway. "Grace, can we talk?" "We can talk right here." She glanced past me into the foyer, where she had clearly expected to be invited. She rearranged her face. "I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I think David handled Thanksgiving badly, and I think I know he said things he shouldn't have. He's heartbroken." This letter, though, Grace, $51,000. We can't. There's no way. Lily's orthodontist is. We're stretched. We. Elena. She stopped. "I'm going to ask you a question. You don't have to answer it out loud. I just want you to hear it, all right?" "Okay." "When David told me to eat in my room on Thursday, did you know he was going to say it? Or did he surprise you?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Her silence was the answer. It was always going to be the answer. I had just wanted to see her face when I asked. "Grace, You made 11 place cards, Elena. 11. You knew exactly how many people were at that table because you had counted, and I was not one of them. You did not set a place for me, and then, when I arrived, you asked David to handle it. And he did. He handled it by telling his mother to eat upstairs. You did not have to say the words, you just had to arrange the chairs. Her face did the thing Brittany's and Elena's have always done in my kitchen. It went the blotchy red of a woman who is not used to being described accurately. That's a terrible thing to say. It's a true thing to say. Those are not the same, though I understand why they feel that way to you. We came here to fix this. No, Elena. You came here because you got a legal letter, and you thought you could charm me out of it the way you've charmed David, out of every conversation he should have had with me for 10 years. I'm not angry with you. I want you to know that. I'm not even hurt anymore. I'm simply done. She stood on my porch in her camel coat. You're being cruel. I'm being clear. She turned. She walked to her car. She looked back once, from the driver's side, and I could see her mouth moving. She was practicing what she was going to tell David. I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I went into my kitchen and I set the kettle on, and I opened the cookbook I'd stopped cooking from years ago, because cooking for one had felt like a punishment. I turned to the recipe for Raymond's favourite stew. I read the ingredients out loud to the empty kitchen. Then I drove to the grocery store and I bought every one of them. Lily called 3 weeks before Christmas. My granddaughter is 9. She had taken her mother's phone off the counter and locked herself in the bathroom to make the call. Grandma? Hi, sweetheart. Are you mad at us? I sat down in my kitchen. I took a breath. No, baby, I'm not mad. Mom said you were mad, and that's why you didn't come for Christmas last year either. And, sweetheart, listen to me. Grandma is not mad at you. Grandma will never be mad at you. But Grandma and your mom and your dad had a grown-up disagreement, and grown-ups sometimes need a little time apart to think. Do you understand? Kind of. What did you call about, sweetheart? I wanted to tell you I got a solo in the Christmas concert. I'm singing "Oh Holy Night." In the middle verse, I'm by myself. Mum said you probably wouldn't come. My heart folded itself into a small, tight shape. Mom said you probably wouldn't come. Like I was the kind of grandmother who skipped her granddaughter's concert. Like I was the one who had closed the door. Sweetheart, what day is the concert? December 18th, at 7. I'll be there. Front row if they let me, second row if they don't. She started crying. Quiet, careful crying. The kind a 9-year-old does when she doesn't want her mother to hear through the wall. Grandma? Yes, baby. Is my college money still there? Oh, so that was what she had overheard. Lily, listen to me very carefully. Your college money is in a safe place where no one can ever touch it, except you, when you're old enough. It has been there since the day you were born. It will be there when you're ready for it. That will never change. Do you understand? Yes, Grandma. And Joaquin's? His too, I promise. She exhaled, the way only a child can exhale, like she had been holding a breath for weeks. Okay. Sweetheart, one more thing. Whatever your parents say about me, whatever they tell you Grandma is doing, you can always, always call me and ask me the truth. All right? I will never lie to you. Okay, Grandma. I love you, Lily. I love you too. I sat in my kitchen for a long time after she hung up. Then I opened my calendar and I wrote, in pen, December 18, 7 p.m. Lily's solo. Front row. Then I closed the calendar and I made myself dinner, which was Raymond's stew, and I ate it at my own table by the window, with the cardinal watching me from the feeder. I went to the concert. Elena saw me in the doorway and went pale. David stood up halfway out of his seat and then sat back down, because what was he going to do? ask his mother to leave a public elementary school auditorium. I walked past their row without looking at them. I took a seat 3 rows up, on the aisle, alone. Lily saw me from the risers. Her whole small face cracked into a smile so bright. I had to look down at my program for a second, so I wouldn't cry in front of strangers. She sang her verse. Alone. In the middle of "O Holy Night," which is a song about a soul feeling its worth. She sang it like a little girl who had just been told, for the first time in months, that she was safe. When the concert ended, Elena tried to intercept me in the aisle. I held up one gloved hand, the way a woman directing traffic does, and she stopped. Just stopped. I walked past her, and I knelt down at the edge of the stage, and I opened my arms, and Lily jumped off the risers and into them. And I held her for long enough that the auditorium lights came up around us. Over her shoulder, I looked at my son. David was crying, openly, in public, in a folding chair in an elementary school auditorium. I held his daughter. I didn't say a word to him. I did not need to. My silence was a sentence he had written himself. His letter came the week after Christmas. No return address. His handwriting. Mom, I've been trying to write this for weeks. I keep starting over. I don't know how to say it right. I know what I said at Thanksgiving. I know I let Elena set a table without you on it. I know Dad would never have let that happen, and I know he would be ashamed of me, because I am ashamed of me. I'm not writing to ask you to undo anything. I'm not going to mention the loan. I am writing because I watched you hold my daughter after her solo, and I understood, for the first time, in a long time, that my mother is a person and not a resource. I don't know how to be better yet. I'm in counseling. Elena is not, and I don't know what that means. I just wanted you to know, your son, David. I read it twice. I put it in a drawer. Not the trash, not a frame, a drawer. Some apologies need to sit in a drawer for a long time before they become anything else. That's not cruelty. That's honesty with a handle. On New Year's Eve, I went to the Haven. Beatrice had organized a small dinner for anyone who didn't have family plans, which was most of us. Francis was there. Horace was there, in a sweater his late wife had knit him, in 1998 that he wore every year. Delphine played Auld Lang Syne on the dining hall piano, and we all sang, and most of us cried, and nobody apologized for crying. At midnight, I stood with a plastic cup of sparkling cider in my hand, and I thought about the plate in the warming drawer. I thought about a woman. I had almost become a woman who eats upstairs, who accepts a child's portion, who carries pies 4 hours up the highway to a table with no chair for her. I thought about how close I had come, and how quietly I had stepped back from that cliff. I thought, he said, "Mum, eat in your room." And I had answered, not with my voice, with my life. I came home, and I wrote one line in the small notebook I had started keeping on my nightstand. They gave me a plate upstairs, so I set a table somewhere else. Then I turned out the light, and I slept the way a woman sleeps, when she has finally stopped waiting to be offered a seat at a table she had paid for, cooked at, and outlived the right to beg for.